Good Sunday morning to you. Sometimes on a Sunday morning, Richard and I like to have a nice hearty breakfast. And on those mornings, I usually make biscuits and gravy. And today I'm going to show you how to make homemade biscuits. What you're going to need, first I'm going to show you your equipment. What you're going to need is, I like to use a cast iron skillet to cook my biscuits in, but if you don't, you can use a pie pan. And I like the nice big Pyrex ones. You're going to need something to cut your biscuits. I find this glass is the perfect size. You can pay money for a biscuit cutter, but glasses work just as good. You're going to need a pastry cutter, a nice big bowl. The ingredients are 2 cups of flour that I have in the bowl, a tablespoon of baking powder, just put that in the bowl, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of sugar. Again, that's a tablespoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. Now, you should have already started your oven at 375. Get it nice and heated up. Okay. So I have my dry ingredients in here right now. What I'm going to do is take my pastry cutter and I'm going to fluff up the dry ingredients. And what you're doing is you're incorporating air into your dry ingredients, and that will make for much more fluffier biscuits. And it'll make sure that all your ingredients are well mixed together. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a whole stick of butter. And as you can see, I've cut this down the center and then cut it into slices. It makes it easier to incorporate it into the dry ingredients. I am, though, going to take one little block out, if it's going to cooperate with me, and put it in my frying pan, my cast iron skillet, and then that way I can grease my skillet. Also, this butter needs to be ice cold. It needs to come straight out of the refrigerator. I usually work with all my ingredients. It has to be very cold to make good biscuits. I usually even keep a lot of my equipment in the freezer so it can be really cold too. Usually anytime you're working with butter, you want to keep it very, very cold. So keeping your equipment cold also helps that process. Okay, and as you can see, there's no spoons with this. It's get in there and get your hands dirty and all of that. Okay, so I'm going to take the pastry cutter, and this is not a clean recipe. You're going to end up wearing this flour, I'm telling you. And you just work at getting this butter incorporated. You'll have to, from time to time, pull up your pastry cutter and pull the butter off so it can get down into the bowl. It just takes practice. It's like any other skill. You know, you've got to practice at it. I've been making biscuits a lot of years, so I'm pretty fast at this. If you're just starting to learn to use a pastry cutter, it's going to take you a little longer, but you know, you'll get the skill and you'll get faster at it. It's also good for the biceps. Work on this. And when you get all the butter incorporated, it should look like small pebbles, or well, I guess small pebbles is a pretty good description. Try not to put try not to put your hands in there with the butter, because the heat of your body will melt that butter too quickly, and that's not what you want to have happen. This is a recipe that you do need to work pretty quickly at if you want to have decent biscuits. And I turn my bowl at the same time, makes it easier to work on. Okay, that looks pretty good. And as you can see, it's like little pebbles in there. There's no big pieces. Well, there's a couple, but that won't matter because you're going to roll this stuff. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is put in 3/4 of a cup of milk. And keep your milk jug close by. You may need a little extra depending on the weather. I know that sounds strange depending on the weather, but sometimes it's drier than other times, and humidity plays a big part in cooking, particularly baking. And I see I am going to need some more milk. I've got quite enough. My cameraman is going to help me here. Thank you, Richard. So put a little bit of milk in there. And try not to put too much in, because you know you can always add more. You can't take it out, as my grandmother always used to say. Take it slow. Have patience. Okay, that looks starting to look pretty good. As you see, it's all getting picked up into the dough ball. Now you don't want to work, you want to try to work the dough ball as little as possible. Again, we're trying to maintain the integrity of that butter. We don't want it to get too melty. That's not exactly a word, but okay. Next thing we're going to do is put some flour down here on the table, on the counter. What we're going to do is put the dough out here. Now, my rolling pin is marble, and I just took it out of the freezer. Again, we're trying to maintain the integrity of the dough. I'm going to roll it out once. And then I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to spread some more flour out here on the counter. I'm going to turn it this way. I'm going to roll it out again. The long way. Not too thin. You see this is about maybe an inch. Fold it in half again. And what you're doing is you're creating layers in the biscuit dough. They have the butter, which is going to make for your nice, fluffy biscuits. Okay, so this is the, I only do that twice. Now I'm going to roll it out to cut. And we like pretty big, tall biscuits. So we usually only get about 5 biscuits out of a batch. Now that needs to be a little thinner. And again, it's just, you know, getting used to making these and knowing what you like. Some people like a little thinner biscuit, some people like a little thicker biscuit. Okay, so I'm going to take my cup, pick up some of the flour off the counter. You see, I got 4 nice biscuits out of that first roll, and those will be the fluffiest. Every time you have to rehandle the dough, those biscuits are going to be a little bit tougher than the ones before. So I just squeeze this together a little bit. Try not to handle it too much. Roll out. There's one more biscuit, so see we got 5, and then I'm just going to put this in the center. I'm going to roll this up and pat it out into kind of a biscuit form. And that's going to go in the center of the pan. So I got my cast iron skillet, and I like to use cast iron because to me it heats the best. It gives you good even heat, and it gives a nice crust on the biscuits, on the bottoms of the biscuits. So I put them in here and kind of evenly space them. Okay, now they're going to go in the oven. I'm going to set my timer for 17 minutes. And then you check them at the end of 17 minutes, make sure they're done. They might need another minute or 2. And that is how you make homemade biscuits. Thank you for joining me. You have a good Sunday.